Hey everybody, Scott from West New York Brews here, and I'm talking about the Catalyst fermentation system today from craftedbrew.com. And I've had a couple of months now to put this through the paces, and I've fermented 2 different beers in it. And I want to tell you some of the pros and cons, things that I've found. So, starting with the construction of the Catalyst, I'm a huge fan of the plastic part up here. The actual fermentation vessel is made out of Titan plastic, which I don't know what that means. However, I know that it held up in the dishwasher and it came out spotless. It was a really easy clean, not only because of the dishwasher, but because of the straight-walled sides with nothing pressed into it. There's nowhere for the hops or any of the trub to hide in here. It's a straight wall. So if anything does stick, you can easily get a sponge in there. So pro number 1, this is really easy to clean. Pro number 2, I like that this has a bucket-sized opening, even larger than a bucket up on top. It makes it easier to get your hand in there to clean. Also, it makes it easier to dump things in. The lid itself has an O-ring right here, so that when it goes on top, it creates a firm seal. It's difficult to get pressed down for the seal, and there were times that I was worried that I was going to put too much pressure on the stand. I didn't hear any problems. I didn't see any problems. I'm just letting you know that when I was pushing it down, just like I am now, it takes a little bit to get there on each of these. I guess the pro side of that, though, is I feel fairly confident when I do get it down that they're going to stay. Here. Here's the last one. I have to muscle it a little bit more than I would like. There we go. So I like this bucket type lid. I like that it creates a really solid seal. It also has a hole so you can throw a bung in there, which they provide you with here. Now the problem that I had with this is that I couldn't get my thermocouple down there, and I thought maybe I'll put another hole in the lid, but instead I just used my 6.5 thermocouple bung here to make it work, and it worked fairly well. I actually had to force this part up through here a little bit so that this would land more dead center in there, but you can see how this goes in. There we go. As it is, the thermocouple goes almost all the way to the bottom. It's not going to get in the way of anything, but I want to keep the thermometer closer to the center inside there, so it's controlling my fermentation chamber. So it makes it a little bit easier for my fermentation chamber to handle the catalyst. Plus, as opposed to other fermenters I've had, the height of this is much more close to a standard carboy or a standard bucket. So this blow-off tube here, this blow-off tube is something that they provide with the kit. So I appreciate that they included this. Because of the shape of this, both brews that I went through here did end up needing the blow-off tube. As the Krausens started to come up to the top, both of them hit right dead center there and sent some down into my growler down at the bottom filled with sanitizer. But again, I don't know if I can call that a con because they did provide a blow-off tube. They sent that with it knowing that that would happen. So everything in the box here worked exactly how they planned. So another pro, this stand. The stand comes with it and it's fairly nice. It is plastic. It does feel sturdy though, and it gives you something to carry when you're trying to lift this. You can get your fingers underneath there really well. There's no sharp edges. Makes it easy to carry. As easy as carrying any carboy is or any bucket is. As opposed to other conical fermenters that I've had that didn't include a stand where you need to hold the sides of the fermenter and they're sloped inward. This one comes with the stand so you can use it. So let's talk about the valve assembly here. The valve assembly has some nice things going for it. It has some pros, it has some cons. So let's talk about the pros first. I like that it can use any standard wide mouth jar, like a mason jar or ball jar. They include one here so that you can put that in there and use it right out of the box. I like that. So you can use any wide mouth jar to either reuse yeast or to empty the trub. This slides on here and has O-rings in here that keep everything tight. I found no leaking while this was on and while this was open. No leaking at all. When I did find leaking, it was in these 2 situations. So after you get this closed tight, Here, this is absolutely filled with trub. Makes sense. So when you unscrew this, right here, between the O-ring and the valve, there's still some liquid there. So no matter what, it's going to come over the top of this. That happened a couple of times. So make sure you get a bowl underneath there. It's not a huge deal. Know that you're going to put a bowl underneath there. It's just one of those things. There's that extra space, so there's no getting around the fact that there's going to be some extra liquid higher than the lip of whatever jar you're putting on there. So another nice thing about the catalyst is that you could add the yeast from a starter that you made directly into a mason jar, opening up the valve and letting the wort flow onto the yeast. It's going to send a bubble up through the wort. However, I haven't noticed any problems with that. I haven't noticed any off flavors or premature oxidation. As soon as it gets up to the top, the CO2 is heavier and falls down to the bottom. The oxygen gets pushed out pretty quick. So then we have the bottling or the kegging attachment, really just a tube attachment. Now what's nice is that this nipple here was able to accept a 5/16 inner diameter tube, which I already had on hand. So that was easy to add to this and to throw it right into my keg and to drain into that. Also, the 5/16 inner diameter fits the bottling wand, which I already had. So I didn't have to buy anything to make this work right out of the box. Although it was because I happened to have some extra run of 5/16 inner diameter, because otherwise you would have to use the tubing that they gave you, take it out of the top, and then put it on the bottom, and because I already had the thermocouple bung. So another time when I did find some leaking was getting the bottling attachment onto the bottom. One time it leaked for me, one time it didn't. So I'm going to assume that it was my fault on the time that it did. However, I did get some leaking right here on one time when I was bottling. As for the valve assembly itself, seems really sturdy. I didn't get any leaking when it was closed. It opened up really easy. It closed very easily too. It clicks into place so you can hear it, you can feel it. It feels very sturdy. This whole thing feels heavy duty, like it's going to last a long time. So, as an all-around review, I was really impressed with the catalyst. I liked that everything came with it. There was no extra accessories that were needed to make this work. They do include the tubing, and it could be as simple as reusing the tubing to go to the bottling attachment. It was just nice that I happen to have the extra 5/16 inner diameter tubing with me. And the thermocouple, because if you want to use it in a fermentation chamber, you're going to want to make sure that you get the thermometer directly into your wort. For ease of use, for out-of-the-box usability, and for cleanability, I'm a huge fan of the catalyst. So at this price point, at about $199, you're about $30 short of just getting a stainless steel conical. So why do this instead? Well, this includes more accessories, and I really enjoy that you can put this in a dishwasher to clean it. I enjoy that the trub trap, the cups, are simple wide-mouth jars. So you can keep reusing wide-mouth jars, or if something breaks, you just go get a new ball jar, a new mason jar, instead of getting something proprietary. Or you can keep the yeast in your fridge. Just don't completely clamp it down because you don't want any fermentation exploding jars in your fridge. So that's the Catalyst fermentation system. Check it out at craftedbrew.com. Check out the rest of the West New York Brews Review Tuesday videos at youtube.com/WNY Brews. And check out the podcast on iTunes and Google Play. Thank you for watching.